Let's go to our very good friend, Stephen Yates. At Yates, DCIA on Twitter. He is an all things expert. Really, foreign policy is his wheelhouse, but he knows, I think, more than a lot of people do on domestic issues as well. And he is with the DC International Advisory. Okay, Stephen, I have to ask you this. I am really struggling with this, and I'm going to start with this because it's so ridiculous I can't even hardly get my mind around it. So over the weekend, the Iranian regime was endlessly mocked because they were passing off a NASA astronaut child's costume as their own actual Iranian spacesuit thing. They even tweeted the image out and everything, and it's legit it's called the Astronaut Silver Child Space Explorer costume. Now, how in the world is this? They're running a country. I would just think that, yes, even though they're tyrants, at least maybe have someone actually just make one. This is insane to me that they would even do this. Of course, not the first time, because they photoshopped missiles before when trying to convince the United States of their power. But what was the point of them tweeting something like this out, knowing the internet they have to? Give me your thoughts on this, and then we're going to talk about all this domestic stuff.
Well, Dana, this would be a super, super funny story if they were a funny country at all. And you're exactly right. They have faked things before. They photoshopped missiles. And you have to ask yourself, what's their audience? And obviously their audience isn't a world that has access to Google or that cares about the truth. And so there has to be something in their feedback mechanism that says that the cult followers of this theocratic regime will believe anything they put up there. And it's just meant to influence rather than inform. It's just a sad state of political warfare. The people in Iran have suffered greatly because of this regime, but they're also too cut off from very obvious truths in the world. And I think that's the sad lesson of that.
No, that is a sad lesson to it. And I would think that this country, I would say that, they can't really be a very formidable opponent in ideology if they're doing something like this. But I think that kind of ignores the asymmetrical warfare aspect of it, which is what I want to bring to you with this soundbite. Audio soundbite 25. And I feel as though Joe Biden, when he discusses this, obviously I'm thinking of the way that the country was founded, but I'm also thinking of asymmetrical tactics that have been used to, even against the United States elsewhere. I look at Vietnam and I look at how long we've been in Afghanistan, and I feel like he doesn't really understand that. Listen to this.
There's never been a limit on that anybody could own a weapon, period. No, and by the way, those who say the tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots, a great line. Well, guess what? The fact is, if you're going to take on the government, you need an F-15 with Hellfire missiles. There's no way an AK-47 is going to take care of you.
Now, overlooking the two obvious points here, he misses the tyrant portion of that Thomas Jefferson quote, and second thing is that it about Second Amendment issues, obviously. But there's something in here that, to me, tells me, okay, this guy would be a nightmare in any kind of conflict scenario because he does not understand asymmetrical warfare and how we have seen this and how our soldiers have faced this in different parts of the world. How do you react to that soundbite, knowing this guy is running for the #1 spot and he would be the commander-in-chief?
Well, there's a lot about Joe Biden lately that has just been really difficult to just flat out understand. He's gone from belligerent tirades against voters in town halls to calling women who attend his forums different names. And there's just an element of him that's flat out of control. And I think it's correct that he doesn't understand the fundamental concept that people that have self-reliance, self-respect, and the ability to self-defend are actually going to be much more governable, much more productive, and you can have kind of a free and prosperous society. You look at where the totalitarian regimes are around the world, and you've got China right now, and what do they have? A massive health outbreak that is out of control that's poisoning people beyond their borders. You have Iran that can have some kind of a Halloween costume masquerading as an astronaut, and yet the people suffer. And so he doesn't understand that in these tyrannical environments, people are denied the right to self-defense. They don't have a choice. They don't have free access to information. They're not really safe, secure, prosperous societies either. And so I think there's definitely a strategic piece missing from the Biden arsenal. But frankly, I testified before the guy in the 1990s in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on things China at that time. And I think he was kind of 2 crackers short of a full roll then, too. He just wasn't working. He just didn't quite understand authoritarianism.
I like that. I am totally going to use that in the future. That is one that I've not heard before. I like that. Now, with everything that we know, obviously Biden and them racking up the sound bites in New Hampshire Friday, everyone always keeps trying to say, it's a Friday night massacre. Everyone wants to recapture, I guess, whatever happened in the Nixon era and attribute that to every single time Trump makes a decision. I've heard this used so many times to describe any of his actions. Both the Vindman twins are out, Gordon Sondland's out, and you have a number of Democrats and there are some conservatives who act as though that the president doesn't have the authority to remove individuals who are working in his administration if they are not willing to implement the mandate that voters chose in 2016. I mean, am I incorrect here? I mean, the way that I understand it, Trump is the president it's his foreign policy. That's what voters chose. They didn't vote for these administrative people who I guess feel as though that authority comes from the administrative pillar of government and not really so much the voters.
I'm blown away with the argument somehow that people are entitled to work in the White House and entitled to jobs in the national security apparatus. I mean, what these guys did was worse than just saying, I'd belong here and the president has to listen to me. They violated their oaths of office. They violated national security guidelines. They leaked and conspired with people in the Congress to try to bring a bogus case against the president. I mean, and I hear that Vindman is being considered for the Army War College in Carlisle this summer. I mean, really, people should kind of be barking loud about the abuse by these folks who feel like they're entitled to dictate to us how to think. And really, frankly, our military needs to stop rewarding people that engage in behavior that violates a chain of command. If you want all of the civil rights that are outlined in the Bill of Rights, then you don't sign up for jobs in the national security realm. One of the first things you do is you willingly forego some of those rights. You don't have freedom of association. You don't get to hang out with communists. You don't get to hang out with terrorists. You don't get to hang out with people who want to attack our country. And you don't have free speech. That's why you're given privileged access to sensitive national security information. And these guys don't seem to have gotten it. Frankly, if we lived in the dictatorship that the Hollywood weirdos and the mainstream media want to tell us we have right now under Trump, these guys would have been marched out of the White House a long time ago. The fact that they stayed there this long is the strongest counter-argument to Trump running some kind of a dictatorship. I would have said goodbye to these guys from day one of the administration.
That's a great point. And Gordon Sondland, I remember he had changed because he had testified behind closed doors. And then when he was on camera, apparently his whole story changed several times. And he even said when he was asked by Mike Turner, Republican out of Ohio, when he said, you were told that no aid was tied to political investigations. Is that correct? And that's correct. That was Sondland's direct quote. And Sondland even quoted Trump telling him, I want nothing, I want no quid pro quo. And yet and he was supposed to be like the star witness for Democrats. And so if you're making something up behind closed doors, and then when you're out in front of cameras and you're finally saying the truth because you realize how disastrous it would be if you didn't. Yeah, I wouldn't want that individual to be part of my administration. And it amazes me as it relates to the Vindmans. We had all of the weeping and gnashing of teeth over Clint Lawrence and Eddie Gallagher and all of this other stuff. And when you have individuals who are, as you said, they're insubordinate. I mean, I really don't know any other way to. They're awarded and they're defended by the left on this insubordination, even at the detriment of our foreign policy and standing with foreign nations. That is so dangerous. That is so. Do they not realize how dangerous that is?
Oh, they don't care. I don't think, number one, I don't think they know, but I also don't think that they care to know. And, of course, they would never have stood up for anyone in the national security apparatus, say, going out and correcting the record about Susan Rice lying to the American people in the wake of Benghazi, telling the truth about Hillary Clinton's role in all of that. They never, ever would have stood up for any form of insubordination, breaking the chain of command on that. Remember the time when we had a very respected general fired from his position in the field for saying just a few unkind words about Joe Biden.
Yes.
So I mean, there's obviously a massive, massive hypocrisy gap here. And yes, they don't care about the national security of the United States right now. They think the United States is the problem in the world, not the solution. I think it's one of the most important things the president needs to roll the boulder back against.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Gosh, well, and we'll wait to see who the challenger would be, who would just keep putting those kinds of officials in these administrative capacities. Stephen Yates at Yates DCIA on Twitter. You need to go find him. Stephen, always such a pleasure. I so enjoy talking with you. Thank you for your valued insight on all of these matters. We appreciate you.